and I'm very excited to start it off with someone I've known for a while, writer CEO May Habib, who's leading an enterprise AI platform. So welcome, May.
Thank you, Ina. Hi, everyone.
I know you have much broader ambitions, but a lot of people, still think of writer as marketing because that's kind of where you got your start. Where else are you seeing AI not just become helpful, but mission critical, hard to turn off? Like, where is it really sticky once companies get going successfully?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. We are an enterprise platform for agentic work, so all of the work that is happening that wasn't possible before agents. And we really focus on regulated industries, healthcare, life sciences, financial services. Now, what is amazing is even in marketing, this stack is getting rewritten top to bottom. And we were here last year together, and we talked about the amazing coding capabilities of the models, but truly, it is now 10,000 times easier to build software. So even within marketing, compared to last year, what our customers can now do to literally write their own tools is pretty remarkable. So now take that into everything from medical record summarization, where folks had been spending, our customers in healthcare and the big plans in the US spending tens of millions on, outsourced software development to house the medical record summarization that then they used our AI to plug into. They're now rewriting that whole tooling themselves with our AI. And that's just an incredible explosion in functionality for the writer platform.
And one of the questions I'm going to be asking a lot of people, because my guess is it's the question for most of the CEOs and board members that are around, is we still hear so much, we tried AI, we did the experiments, and when we expanded it broadly, we didn't see the ROI. In your experience, what's the most maybe uncomfortable reason, but reason why things don't work out?
The fundamental physics of this is the executives are saying, change stuff with AI, and then they're giving people like copilots and productivity tools. And you're not going to get the wholesale reinvention that actually drives impact. I'll give you an example. We have a financial services customer in the US, so this is a top 50 financial institution, who, when the big beautiful bill came out in the summer, wanted to email 11 million people that they had lots of records on how this bill would create tax changes that might impact them. They couldn't. They had a legacy SaaS stack, and they just could not quickly enough understand what was changing, right, in the bill, and then who within their 11 million people in that database would actually be impacted and how. And it was such a missed opportunity. Those are the kinds of initiatives and projects that drive ROI, and the vast number of people are just not implementing AI or really bringing in the right tooling to be able to drive the wholesale end-to-end workflow transformation.
Now, the last time we talked, you all were still, in addition to using others, creating your own models. Is that still the case? And why, when there's so many people spending billions on these models, are you doing that? And do you think that that will continue into the future?
Yeah, so we've got a really powerful LLM gateway that's built right into the product. So if you are NVIDIA and want to use your own models in Writer, they're a great customer, you can absolutely do that. Any model that's in Bedrock can be used inside of Writer, from Claude to Llama. The reason we and many other AI companies at scale are now, and have been building and training their own models is enterprise readiness and scale, profitability, speed, inference. So there are a lot of reasons, from whether you are using models to create synthetic data or fine-tuning a model to be better at a specific set of tasks that people are doing in your product, that it's going to be better than literally every API call being to a third-party, generic massive model.
So it's less a cost thing and more an efficiency thing?
But both. Yeah.
Okay. And do you think that that'll be the case a couple of years from now,
Yeah,
too?
I mean, if you can do it, you'd be crazy not to.
Another thing that, as you guys have expanded, you were once sort of more niche and maybe could fly under the radar. That's probably not the case anymore. What is it like going up against these giants? I imagine that's who you're competing for business now. I mean, I saw the lovely billboards that I'm sure did not come cheap that, say Writer, they're very similar to the message you might hear from Salesforce, you might hear from other really large tech companies. Does it feel different going against the big guys?
Yeah, we get to go in with just a lot more specificity and actually a lot more referenceability. And so if we are talking to a life sciences company about transforming medical writing end to end or regulatory submissions end to end, we've actually done it, and we've done it for their peers. And so, the implementation is very specific. All of the tooling in Writer to manage the context that you need to make LLMs really good out of the box, right? The new CMS is not the content management system, it is the context management system. And everything we do to be able to track an agent's decision making, to be able to audit it, to have a ontology that's agentically constructed based on how your users are actually using the tooling to do a particular task. All of that makes that nth interaction of a user that much better. And our competition doesn't have systems that are getting smarter the more people use them in your side of your company, which is still kind of mind-boggling. So yes, very competitive, but we are able to stand out once we're in front of the customer.
What's the hardest part about being smaller than some of your competitors? Are there, obviously there's benefits. You talked about some of them. Are there any parts that are harder about being a smaller company?
I think the folks at OpenAI aren't constantly telling their employees and re-emphasizing how they're going to win or the path to winning, right? That is constantly happening at, not just us, but I talk to other founders of single-digit billion valuation companies who are going up against the hyperscalers constantly. But you are able to, through winning with the customer and showing the impact of the customer that your technology is having on the customer, really continuously, daily re-inspire people around how different the impact is.
Sorry, I had to crack a little smile because you talked about single-digit billion companies as the little guys. It just reminds me the scale. Yeah, once upon a time, Europe was happy if they had their first, decacorn. One of the things I always appreciate talking about you, and I feel like this isn't getting talked about enough, and if anything seems to have fallen off the conversation, is the problems with AI, the challenges, not just if we get it wrong, but even if we get it right. And one of the ones that we've talked a lot about, you and I, is bias. Does it matter that most of the big models out there are being written by just a handful of companies run by mostly white or Chinese men, and that not just who's leading, but also that the data it's built upon has so much bias? And do you agree that there seems to be a lack of focus these days on that?
Yeah, not just in LLM training, but kind of technology writ large. There's been a very disappointing fall off in anything around, trust and bias. We're a very diverse team. It starts at the top, obviously, but we used to really publish about this, publicly. Internally, we've got data, et cetera, that we use to track the diversity of our teams. But if you are a user at Elf Cosmetics and you're using Writer to, change an image, someone's holding, a picture of or an actual, physical product of yours, and you ask Writer to change something about the picture, and we change the race of the person holding it, you're not going to trust our product. And so it is really important as we build and test that we're putting ourselves in the shoes of our customers who want to build inclusive companies that inspire high brand trust. They do not want to use AI to disappoint their own users and customers. And so that's a big responsibility on us. And it influences absolutely everything about how we produce the product.
And is the bias we see, do you see it mostly as a data problem? That's obviously where it started. Or at this point, is it a governance problem? Is it a power problem? Is it a problem that, we're hearing diversity, equity, inclusion thrown around as a slur instead of a goal?
Yeah, that's so well said. I think it's a prioritization. The evals are there, the frameworks are there. A lot of this is public source on, the ways that you can test the models. And so it's a matter of prioritization. Is there a Jira epic for it or not?
And the bias question kind of opens up to a broader question, because when we're talking about bias, we're not just talking about including people, which is valuable in its own right, but it's also really this notion of what is accurate, what is fair. And I'm curious, there's a lot of talk that the goal of enterprise AI is to be neutral or objective. is that even realistic in a society that, globally, as much as, this Davos was founded on this idea of sort of a global society, there are a lot of values that are different across cultures.
Yeah, 100%. I think, the whole idea of giving enterprises a context management system is we get to encode not just their knowledge and their processes and their know-how, the stuff that LLMs don't have, but also their value system. And, if we've got a financial services customer who's built a, SEC audit agent and a FINRA agent to be able to review everything that they are producing in Writer, there's also a brand agent. We've got a customer who has an ethics agent. And so, you really reflect your user base. And, luckily, and this is, not by chance, we have partnered with customers who have the same values as us at Writer.
And, I'm going to ask everyone, you're going to be the first to get the bubble question, but you won't be the last, and I won't be the last person to ask you about it. Sometimes when people talk about, is there an AI bubble, I think that gets mistranslated as, is AI real or not? And to me, that's not the question. Same with the dot-com boom. The internet was real, it was a big thing, but what you had was too much investment too soon to get a return, and so you had the crash. And I'm curious, do you see signs of the same thing happening? Well, let's start there. Do you think there is a bubble, and why or why not?
There's one way of looking at it, right? Like when you look at either of the big labs right now, they're both basically valued at more than Salesforce plus Adobe plus Databricks plus Snowflake. Like that's hard to kind of wrap your head around because those other companies are working really, really hard to bring AI to their customer base. When I look at how much work there is to be done, right? I started off by saying Writer is an enterprise platform for agentic work, the work that you could not do, right, before AI. And you really think about all the ways these customers could grow and serve their customer base better, right? It is hard to not think that, the software market isn't going to be 10 times bigger. And if the customer is actually building their own software, right? That's what you do with Writer, that's what you do with the LLMs now, versus kind of buying it off the shelf. You could see what the bull case looks like for sure. But absolutely, if you're looking at spending that is happening now, it is very hard to figure out how the math squares.
So am I hearing right? You think, if anyone's going to get hurt, it's going to be the bigger players?
Yeah.
All right. I will ask Chris Lehane later and see if he agrees. One of the things we have the opportunity to, and I love about getting to write a daily newsletter about AI is I feel like I get to raise one or two things in the minds of readers every day. And one of the things I often ask folks is, what aren't we talking about enough? And in the AI conversations we're having right now, what's getting missed? What aren't we talking about enough?
Yeah, and I'm glad you've got Workday all over the program because they're a great customer and partner and investor. I think career ladders are dead. I don't think you can any longer progress in a career by further and further specialization and gain authority by seniority in title. I think the hierarchy is getting flattened, silos are getting flattened. It makes no sense for sales and marketing to be separate teams for most companies. And you are going to gain in authority and stature by the amount of impact you have. And that's going to mean adding adjacent functions to folks' scope versus kind of the narrow specialization. And when you think about our best power users at Writer, they don't think about their jobs as task execution. They see their jobs now as designing and orchestrating systems that get tasks done. And it's just a fundamentally different way. And by definition, they've got to own more things that had been adjacent to their jobs. And that's, that's a lot of jostling in an organization right now. We didn't get to it, but that's also a lot of reasons why folks haven't gotten ROI. You've got to really kind of break those silos to change workflows end to end. I don't think we're talking about that enough. The is AI eliminating jobs debate of last year or the year before, it's just much more nuanced now. The organizations that are going to succeed are the ones who bring their employees along and tell them how they're going to be successful and really forcibly flatten the hierarchy to get AI more prevalent in the org.
So I want to take that same point and press a little further and put it in a really practical use case, because I get asked this all the time, especially by my just about to graduate from college cousin. So what should I be studying? Where should I be looking for that first job? I think, the next generation, and I don't have a good answer to tell them, like, what are the skills that are going to be valued? What should you study? What experience should you get to have a career? And I get it's not going to be rising up the ladders of a company, but I think they just want to know, how can I have a decent career in the age of AI?
Yeah. In terms of what to study, just critical thinking. You don't have to be a lawyer to take pre-law and learn critical thinking and be very valuable in an organization. And then in terms of where you join and where you go, just very, very collaborative, non-siloed teams. I mean, it's a blanket statement, but it's shocking the number of customers we work with where one team does not talk to another, where one BU does not talk to another. And it's just very hard to be a junior person who gets excited about AI, actually using AI to have an impact. And then that's how you now really stand out. We were in an executive business review with a CEO of a top 50 professional services company, and he was reviewing all the agents that had been built on Writer, and this one name kept popping up of agents that had been used hundreds of times across the company. Literally, he on Teams called that person in our executive business review and asked him if he wanted to be the head of AI, right? That's the kind of visibility you get.
Well, unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there, but I think you gave us a lot to think about as we start our week. Can we have a round of applause for May Habib, CEO of Writer?